Well, we've arrived at the big reveal that basically everybody called. So, Hawkeye, latest episode. Why don't we kind of jump to the end? So, yeah, spoilers. We finally got our confirmation that the Kingpin is involved, which was a pretty safe guess. Just because of the way it felt like it was building, kept getting referred to as the big guy. I'm going to say two things about this. The first is, I guess three things. First is not unexpected, as I said. The second is I'm very happy to have Vincent D'Onofrio back in this part. He's very good in this part, and I definitely want to see what the MCU is going to do with him. The third thing I'll say is it does feel a little bit weird that Hawkeye is so scared of him. I think this kind of shows a little bit of a disconnect of scale, if nothing else, between the Marvel Netflix stuff and the rest of the MCU. Because the Kingpin was definitely a towering figure in Daredevil, but given what Hawkeye tends to take on in terms of, well, I mean, not even like Thanos, just like the size and scope of these things that just an organized crime lord, the fear that he seems to have of him seems a little out of proportion, at least right now, because the MCU has not really established what he has been up to and where he currently stands. So all we have to go off of is the kind of character he was in Daredevil, which again was a very good character, but not the kind of character I would have expected Hawkeye to be scared of. Now, that's not really a criticism. I mean, it's a little bit of a criticism. That's not that much of a criticism because, like, this is just going to be something that they establish, hopefully, as they integrate him now into the main continuity. Because the how canon the stuff over on Netflix was pretty debatable. Like it was probably canon, but you also didn't have to acknowledge it. And this is the first time they ported something over, so there's new things that need to be established about him, which I hope they will do. I wish I had been surprised by Kate's mom turning out to be the one in with him. Unfortunately, somebody mentioned that as a possibility in their comments. Well, they actually said specifically they thought she turned out to be Madame Mask. I'm not sure if I believe that'll be the case. But once they said that, it did make sense that because Jack's kind of a doofus and an idiot, and how easy it was for them to connect him to the shell company, that to me says he's the fall guy. So I wasn't too shocked by her turn. That said, I think it was fairly decently done as far as these types of things go. I think if you hadn't cordoned on to that possibility, they still leave the openness that it could be Jack, and he's just being very flippant about the situation he is because he knows he's gonna weasel his way out of it. Now, the actual truth is he's being flippant about it because he knows he didn't do anything. So it does still read, and it's decently done. It is one of those things that's kind of a little bit the victim of a weekly release schedule, in that given the time in between episodes, I had enough time to think about it and go, oh, yeah, right. Whereas if this had been done as a binge, maybe I wouldn't have had enough time to stop and think and catch on to that. That's not saying that I want these released in a binge format. I prefer the weekly release. I'm just saying it's one of the ways it just kind of impacts things a little bit. So I'm a little bit torn on Yelena. On the one hand, I absolutely love Yelena. Yelena is the best, and she is fantastic here. Her scene with Kate, mwah, gold. Loved every second of it. She was casual. She was fun. She was relaxed. She was still menacing and dangerous. You did not lose track of the fact that she could kill her, no matter how casual she got in her conversation. And I love that Kate understood that. And Kate noting, like, you keep saying my full name just to, show how much you know about me. And Yelena just going, yes. Like, you know what I'm doing, but that does not make me any less dangerous. So she's fantastic. The only reason I'm slightly torn is that as much as I love her material in this, and I do love it, I can't help but feel like her inclusion is pulling the focus off of Echo a little bit. Because I was really excited for more of Echo. And we do get more of Echo here, but like, especially knowing they're building a spin-off around her, I really kind of feel like they set her up to really delve into her more, but they're adding other stuff instead. Now, like, it's not a complete pile up of things that don't need to be there, like, say, Doctor Who Flux was. But I do feel like it's pulling focus away from something that was actually more unique to this series. Whereas, while Yelena is a very welcome presence, if you have seen the Black Widow movie, she's also kind of a known factor, whereas I kind of want to get to know Echo better, and I feel like Yelena's kind of taken the oxygen out of the room a little bit with her presence. So there is that. It hadn't occurred to me before that Yelena went in the snap, but the instant actually, I had two thoughts back to back. First of all, when we saw her vanish, my first thought was, oh God, how many times are we going to go back and reinforce the dang snap? Because one of the things I liked about the start of this very show was that it started with the impact of the battle for New York and the Chitauri invasion. Sort of remembering the snap, the blip, whatever you want to call it, was not the only traumatic thing to happen. It's not the only thing you can pull from. So initially I was like, oh God, the snap again. But then it did occur to me, she would have had to have gone during the snap, because otherwise, Natasha's mood and isolation during Endgame makes no sense. If her sister was still around, she would have been in a much better place. And also, like, it adds additional poignancy to her sacrifice, because one of the things she's doing, by sacrificing herself, was trying to bring her sister back. Not just the abstract idea of everybody, but this specific person. Now, granted, when we saw Endgame, none of this was in play. We hadn't met Yelena yet. But if they did not ever establish that Yelena was gone with the snap, then it would have been a major question mark, like, where the hell was she? Now, again, actual logistics of production, she wasn't an active character yet. But this is the kind of, I'll call it a retcon, but this is the kind of, or backfill, maybe it's a better term for it here. This is the kind of additional information about what went on with the character before that feels really well thought out, because it is accounting for things that would have had to have been the case in order for stuff we already know to be playing out the way it was. Because with Natasha having reconnected with Yelena, the only way Natasha's actions and character being where they were in Endgame only makes sense if Yelena is among those gone. So that's good, smart. So again, it was that back-to-back thought, like, oh, the snap again, and then like, oh, it has to be though. She has to be gone during the snap, because nothing makes sense otherwise. I'm really loving Clint's interactions with his wife, because they're the generic, the standard that you expect out of these interactions, these scenarios, is the wife pleading with him to come home, to not do this, and him being the man who knows his duty and like, no, sorry, baby, but I have to. I can't not. And it's not doing that. Or even aside from that, even if she's not necessarily begging for him to come home, doing, the single tear, being like, it's okay, you can go, being very clear that she's actually not okay. And she's hiding herself for the sake of the man to go and do the thing. No, she's just supportive. She is just that supportive. She knows who he is, how he operates, what he does, and that if he feels something is necessary, that he's probably right, or at the very least, he's not doing it callously or casually or carelessly. She understands all of that about her husband, and as a result, she is there to back him however things go. I love their relationship. I love their dynamic. It's something I hope that we see more of within the series, and if they do more with Hawkeye after this, down the line, I would love to see more of the two of them, just their interactions. It's really forming what feels like a very unique relationship, not just for the MCU, but for these kinds of stories and these kinds of characters. And I'm really enjoying the heck out of it. Is it weird that the Tracksuit Mafia is really growing on me? Like, I love these guys. Somebody, I had said I didn't know what to call them before. A few people mentioned in the comments when I did that, the punch card villains. I love that. It's just their job. And I love that, like, they have a van that says trust a bro. Like, they're silly and goofy and in just the right way. Because, like, the way to do this wrong is to turn an aspect of your villainous organization into a joke, and then that just de-escalates the entire threat and the stakes are gone. But knowing that these are the bottom level grunts. And they've got people like Echo above them and Kingpin above that. Yeah, no, this works. This works. These are literally just the guys in the van. They're just moving stuff from here to there, and I do enjoy them a lot. I have been appreciating that we keep, I can't remember his name now, but we keep coming back to the LARPer, who is also in the fire department. I like how he keeps cropping up, and again, he just wants to help. While I'm still a little iffy on some of the stuff that's gone on with the LARPers collectively, him specifically, no, he's growing on me. He's growing on me. I like him. I don't think I have too much else to say because a lot of this was Yelena, and I've talked about that. I mean, Echo is taking the kind of path that I think it was safe to assume she would have to take, given that she's going to be getting her own spinoff and presumably is going to be the hero or at worst an anti-hero in that. So her realizing that she's definitely working for someone who is not a good idea to be working for. Yeah, that's a natural progression of that story, because otherwise her spinoff would be her being Kingpin's lackey, and that I don't think that would hold up too well. But this specific episode, I'm not sure I have too much else to say. Kate was solid. She was good. I think she did well, I mean, like with the scene with Yelena, while Yelena, again, kind of sucked the oxygen out of the room, and she is what sticks in my mind most in the scene. She played very well off her. She handled that scene well as well, and sort of the conflict she's got going on and the push and the pull of like, I want to help, you're telling me I shouldn't help, I'm worried about my mother, I'm worried about this, but I also feel like I must do something. She's playing all that very well. I'm a little back and forth on the string of messages. Like, it was kind of funny, but I almost feel like they hung too big a lampshade on it, if that makes sense. Like having her actually go like, look, I know I sound crazy leaving this many messages. I'm like, yeah, no, you could have just left it at that. You didn't have to say the thing that was very clear to all of us. But again, like I have a couple of minor issues with Kate, but by and large, I am enjoying her, and Haley Steinfeld's playing her well. So I think that's it. Hawkeye episode 5. I dig it. I dig it. I like it. Don't take too much more focus off of Echo. Just don't do that. Don't shortchange her. Like, I love Yelena, but don't lose sight of like the new character that you've introduced. Please. What were your thoughts on this? Whatever they are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. A bunch of other links down there to my socials and whatnot. My P.O. box is down there. If you feel like sending me anything for the holidays or for the new year, hey, I certainly wouldn't object. Patreon's the big thing. That is what pays my bills. But no big pressure on any of it. We take a relaxed attitude around here. So you can just come on back next time you need a break. None of this would have been possible without my supporters over on Patreon. In particular, I want to thank Robin Powell, Raven McBain, Tracy Scrabbit, Vincent Paul Bartolucci, Robin Moore, and Shayla Gourlay. If you'd like to hear me possibly mispronounce your name, maybe consider looking at the reward tiers over on the Patreon. But either way, don't worry about it too much. Take care of yourself.